Hello and welcome. Sit tight. Catch Dog Concepts will be live very soon. Thank you for tuning in. Oh yeah. Yes, sir. Nice little pop-up show. Uh we got Pride Rock Tosas, Cory. I'm not gonna say the brother last name. I don't want to mess it up because people mess up my first name. Uh Cory Vitatoe. There we go. I had to remember it somewhat. Uh we got him and a brother at Pride Rock Tosas coming on. It's gonna be a real informative episode. We run into a couple technical difficulties on his end. He'll be in here soon. Uh, to the two people in here, salute to y'all. Go ahead, comment down below. Uh, Comment down below. Say what's up. I'm back from vacation. I know y'all ain't even expect me to be on here tonight, but we here. What's up, Tony? Salute to you, brother. Shoot. Man, I keep saying it. Nobody say anything though. Give me some suggestions. People you want to see on the episode on the episode. Somebody you want to see me talk to. Give me some suggestions. Put some people in the comments. I don't care if they're a Mastiff breeder, pit bull breeder, Shih Tzu breeder, whatever. Let me know, man. Go ahead. Comment down below. Cory should be in here any minute now. Yeah. I'm I don't run out of things to say, but I got a little dark. I was in North Carolina. I can see it now. Like I didn't notice it before, but I didn't got a little dark, little complexion on me. What was I finna say? I don't even know. I'm just stalling at this point. Oh, while we here. So we got Catch Dog Concepts. I officially just started a podcast. That's a branch off of my media page. I do a little bit of photography. I'm just getting into photography and videography. So it's called Long Way Media. It'll be a black logo, a cross, money sign, and a camera. So y'all go subscribe on YouTube, follow on Facebook, Long Way Media. Y'all catch me there on Long Way Media Podcast. We'll be talking about business, life experiences, just things going on in the world that we could improve on. But we got the brother Cory in here, so we're gonna let him up. What's going on, brother?
Hello. How are you doing, sir?
I'm all right. I don't think I ever told you my name. I'm Javier, not Javier. Javier Long. I'm a young man,
Hey, hello.
Checked out your
Hello.
interview with I can't even remember who it was. It was a great interview though. I felt like I had to have you on to talk about the Tosa Inu.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. My pleasure. And I think the last interview I can remember is with Sean O'Brien over there at Bulldog Social Club.
Okay. Yeah, that's where it was. Yep.
I had a couple before that, but I think that's the most recent.
Got you.
But yes, sir, it's a pleasure to be here. I know we said 8, and I apologize.
It's all good.
I'm telling you, I had this plan of how everything was going to work out today. And then baby boy, he is what? So he's 10 days old today.
Man, congratulations, too.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And, yeah, he had his own plans. He was like, you're not going anywhere. Okay. All right. So that was that. But now he's situated. And if I may take up an extra minute, I would say, I know my wife is going to see this. Thank you so much. She is out there being a warrior with the kids right now.
Shout out to her.
So that we can do this. So much respect. Shout out to her. I couldn't be anything I am without her. So love you, baby.
That's what's up.
And I'll see you in a bit, I guess.
That's all right.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's okay. That's all right. Shout out to Miss Vitatoe for sure.
Yes, sir.
So I mean, tell the people your name and how you got into the dogs.
Yes, sir. And I'm gonna turn my volume up a little bit just so that I can make sure I got you. And if my sound gets weird or anything like that, just let me know.
Gotcha.
I didn't get as long as I usually like to take to kind of mess with things. My lighting is a little harsh and stuff, but if anything looks weird or sounds weird, just let me know and I'll do what I can. So yeah, my name is Cory Vitatoe. I have been a lover of dogs my whole entire life. And it's been an interesting experience, a growth experience. And getting into Tosas, we had mixes growing up for the most part, and we had they were largely Rottweiler, Lab, and Chow. So growing up, not realizing that I was starting with probably some of the hardest breeds, you know, as a kid, and getting into Tosas in high school, and people were kind of like, there's absolutely no way you should have a Mastiff, let alone a fighting Mastiff or a working Mastiff or anything like that.
Wow. So you not to cut you off.
Yeah.
So you had Tosas in high school.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Actually got my first one just before I got my first job.
Wow.
And making all the promises saying, oh yeah, there's not going to be any trouble. I'll make sure I take care of it every day and walking and stuff. And to be honest, I did keep my word on that. It just meant that I was doing walks sometimes at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, in the city in Houston.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thing. Like I was 10 years old with a Presa Canario.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot. Yeah. I loved it though, but yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot I didn't know that I needed to do. It was a lot that I was like, oh my God, why you keep jumping out the kennel? He all the way across town. I'm like, man, what is going on? But
yeah.
So he's part of the reason I created this podcast, just to be able to learn more. And he passed away, but it was just it's a better way for me to learn and understand what I could do or should do with my dog to give them a better life and make sure I don't spend as much money out of my pocket and just be able to learn, like I said, and share that with other people around the world so they don't run into some things I may have ran into or that they run into before that cost them time, money, and a loss.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I think that's awesome. I think a lot of what I do. So, but aside from being a kennel owner and breeder, we also do behavior therapy and training and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I actually started that before I got into Tosas. The reason why I knew when I got one and I was able to tell my parents I'm going to raise this dog right was because of experience that I already had working with dogs with friends and family and stuff like that. And I'll say that one of the, like, so many of the things like volunteering at shelters and stuff like that, it's just, I see a lot of dogs that are in there that could have been avoided. It didn't have to be that way. It's not like the dog was like trying to attack anybody or anything. They were just barking too much and you lived in an apartment complex.
Right.
You didn't know how to stop them from chewing or what may have you. And it's just, it's a shame. But the thing is that as much work as I can do to let people know about the realities, hey, less about breed, more about the energy level of the individual dog you've got. Right. Look at them. Don't just look at what the AKC says the dog is supposed to be on the website. I can guarantee you, in the history of all dogs, there has never been a dog that has ever even come close to perfectly matching the description of temperament or of look. That's
a fact.
That's truth about any breed, period.
Yeah.
And when it comes to it, you can have a German Shepherd that acts like a Golden Retriever, and you can have a Golden Retriever that acts like a Pit Bull. And I've trained both, So just kind of getting that opportunity to share with people, educate them about dogs and breeds and stuff like that. I think that's awesome, and I appreciate that. Thank you for what you do.
For sure. I appreciate that. Yeah, man. I mean, like you started before me. I'm only 18 years old, but you've been in it for a while. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a minute. Every time I think about it, I'm like, I'm so this past May, I turned 37. But every time I think about it, like I think back and it's like, man, shoot, even it's not even just dogs. It's like The Lion King. I remember watching that in theaters, and what's that now? 30 years ago? Wait a
Yeah, that
minute.
was a minute ago.
Okay, it doesn't feel like it was that long.
Right.
You know, but I'll tell you, regardless as to how long I've been in it, my attitude has always been somebody that's willing to learn. And I think that the moment you know when you get too old, you know when it's time to like really start looking at if you should be retiring,
Yeah.
is when you feel like you have nothing left to learn. And I don't mean that in the sense that you know you don't have anything else to learn, but in the
Right.
sense that you feel like it and you therefore want to stop learning.
Yeah.
So shoot, I learn from people every day. I've got in our breed club, I've got, what is she? I think the youngest person is like 16 or 17. Maybe
Wow.
she might be 18.
Yeah.
But shoot, I met her at a dog show, and she was teaching me how to stack my own dogs. I never done it before that. I'm working dogs all the way.
Yeah.
So you want to know how to get a dog to work, whatever the job is, that's me.
Right.
I look at show dogs and I see them like walking around with their heads up, their tails up, their ears up. And it's like, he's not even listening to his handler. He's off in his own world. Like,
Right.
but that's the way they're supposed to look. And that's how they're trained, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm, stepping into that and learning about that and having this kid teach me. And I'm like, don't ever put your head down. And the same thing goes to you. Don't ever put your head down. Don't ever let anybody tell you, hey, I've been doing this for X amount of years. Doing something for a certain amount of time doesn't necessarily mean you learned anything.
Right.
And if you didn't learn humility, if you didn't learn how to look for lessons everywhere, if you didn't learn how to constantly be a student, then nothing that you've experienced seems to have been worth anything.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's awesome. I think keep it up, keep at it. And if I could say one thing, I'd say it doesn't always have to be pretty, right? If today is any indication, I'm running around with a baby in one hand and clicking on another, but that's life sometimes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be, you're going to have people who say, I had an opportunity to do something, build something, get somewhere, but I didn't because this was happening, that was happening. And it'd be legitimate stuff like COVID and everybody was on a pandemic. Life happens. You death in the family, this, that, the other thing, some serious stuff. But at the end of the day, are you going to be saying when you look back on your life, hey, that was a good enough excuse for why I didn't do what I wanted to do? And that's the question that needs to be answered. And I have yet to find something that I can say, oh, I'm okay with that, except for maybe my family. My family, yeah. If I did nothing else but get my family right and get everybody right, then I'm okay with that. But I know I can do more. So
for sure.
Man,
so yeah, we're not even 20 minutes in, and you like dropping game already.
Sorry.
You all good. Like this is like quality stuff you saying right now.
Yes, sir.
Like I'm mesmerized right now. I ain't even got into it yet. Like I knew this is gonna be a good one. But let me pull up my question right quick. Man, yeah, you doing your thing, brother. So you talked about when you first got your Tosa Inu. When did you first like see the breed? Was it in a piece of literature? You see it in a film or something? When did you first see the dog?
So I first saw the breed so this is back in the late 90s, year 2000, 2001, whatever. And the first time I saw them there was this breed. this website called dogbreedinfo.com.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, you could go there and you can learn about dogs. And I had already decided I wanted a purebred dog. I wanted to try something different. And that kind of drove me to try to learn as much as I could. And I was looking at the AKC. I was looking at what kind of dogs they had. And there wasn't nearly as much, I don't think, as there is today. And I don't mean that in the sense that, the AKC just suddenly has a whole bunch of dogs now.
Right.
But as far as what I was looking for, Borbal, Cane Corso, Dogo Argentino, all of these different breeds that you see around today, you go back 10 years ago and nobody even heard of them,
Yeah, that's true.
And you go back 20 years ago and I mean, the AKC hasn't heard of them. If they've got some of them, they're there as a foundation, a FSS breed, but they don't really have them. So I forget how many breeds there were at the time, but I knew that I might need to expand my search. Dogbreedinfo.com came up, and they had every breed you could think of. It was like the AKC had maybe 110 or something like that at that time. And Dog Breed Info had 890, 950, somewhere. It was like ridiculously more. So I just got on Dog Breed Info and started consuming, looking at every breed. And I had my checklist, my little nerd outfit. I was after it. And I came across the Tosa there and was able to kind of learn about the breed in general and just knew based off of what I was seeing on the pictures that they had there and the description of the breed, this is something I want to look into. This is a functional Mastiff. It's got everything I'm looking for. I want a big dog. I want a dog that if the neighbors that we had at the time were using fighting pit bulls, and those dogs could come through the fence. And I love all dogs. I got no problem with all dogs, but I still don't want to come into my own backyard and find my dog dead. Right. So it's not that I hated their dogs or anything like that. It's that I wanted something that could defend itself.
Yeah.
So just kind of looking at Mastiff breeds and then finding that there's a fighting Mastiff that absolutely would have no problem dealing with anything, you know? So, and it's a dog that I don't have to sacrifice because I was looking at Dobermans. I was looking at giant schnauzers. I wanted a dog that could keep up with me exercise-wise. I was in track. So I wanted a dog to keep up with me, running all around that stinking city. And it was like, you want the size to be able to deal with a fight, or you want the athleticism to be able to keep up with you on your bike.
Right.
And just running across the Tosa, it was like, that's it. That's everything. And I looked at the price, and the cheapest I could find was about 50 grand. And there were 2-year waiting lists, not including shipping fees from Japan. It was like, okay, well.
And at what point was this though? Not to cut you out. What, like, this was like 2000. You said one.
Yeah, this would have been, by the time I started looking into them seriously, this would have been 2000, 2001 by now.
You said 50,000 at that time?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yes. And I'll admit that wasn't everybody.
Right.
It was not everybody, but that was certainly some of the more prominent people at that time. Yeah. And it was all I could find at that time.
Yeah.
So as time went on, say fast forward to about 2008, 2009, 2010, there were far more people around, and they were getting online. So they were making their own websites, and you can find people easier. But yeah, at that time, that was it. And it was crazy. So it was like things I know I'm never going to be able to do. That's on the top of the list.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So, I mean, the Tosa, just its history. Even looking at the dog, it's imposing. Excuse me. There's other breeds I think that may have fit that, like the Great Dane. I mean, that is like a powerful, but also a dog that's built to run. Mm-hmm. What out of all the dogs, what made you choose the Tosa?
So, just looking at
you kind of did touch on it a little bit. Yeah. You did, yeah.
I'll say, looking at each breed, there were drawbacks. And again, I took a lot of what I read from like the AKC and stuff like that. I took that to heart. And I'm not trying to knock them or anything like that, but I do, like, as I've grown on and gotten more experience with different breeds, trained more than I can name, certainly more than they recognize. But the more I see, again, what's written on paper versus what's actual, it's not always going to line up like that.
Right.
But I still took what they said to heart. So at that time, the average life expectancy for a Great Dane, believe it or not, was 2 years. And I was like, I mean, that the dogs are wonderful. I think they're excellent. I saw some that looked like they were bred with a bit more function in line, in mind, and I was super in love with the look of those dogs, but I couldn't wrap my head around burying a 2-year-old dog.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And that's the average. So you know what that means? That means that even if you have 1 or 2 that lives to be 10 years old, that means in order to pull that average down to 2, if you have 1 that lives to be 10, you got to have several that died at 1 in order to pull that average down. So it was like I couldn't do that. So just going through each breed and seeing the care of upkeep for things like their fur, if you're dealing with some of the long-coated dogs, knowing what I can offer at that time as a high school student and college student. I can't afford a groomer. I can't afford to deal with all that. So I knew I needed something short coat. And yeah, just looking at the Tosa, they matched all those things. They were extremely healthy breed. And true to form, I stay out of vets' offices. I don't go in except for checkups and health certificates and stuff like that. We did have a dog that we buried at the start of this year who had osteosarcoma in his knee. But aside from that, I've never even had any kind of health concerns or anything like that.
Okay.
So yeah, that was.
Yeah, 2 years is crazy. I think it's different from now, but
yes,
it is. But back then, wow.
Yes.
And but that is one thing. I have a friend. She's a real big Dane enthusiast. People say the dogs are still unhealthy. She's like, no, these dogs are way more healthy than they were back then.
Yes, absolutely. Like if you think about it, if like I think their average life expectancy now is in between 6 and 8 and 8 and 10. I think they're starting to pull it up to 8 and 10. I think it's been 6 and 8 for a little while. And if you think about it, if you have a dog that has an average life expectancy of 10 to 12 years and you do all the work and you get that dog to 12 to 14 years, that's awesome. But you didn't really do a whole lot compared to somebody who got a dog just 2 years difference from 2-year average life expectancy to 4-year. Because while it's the same 2 years, they doubled theirs, right? So they're at 6 to 8, they tripled it. And they're at 8 to 10. They're working on 8 to 10. So that's 5 times what it was. So there's a lot of people doing a lot of really good work with that breed. And that, again, that's part of my growth and education and seeing, again, what's on paper at that time versus how it actually plays out. You can find a good breeder. You can get healthy dogs. And I think that they were available at that time. I don't want to badmouth the breed or any breeders from that era or anything. I think people were doing the best of what they knew. But even just looking at it now, I can say I'm not afraid of any Mastiff. I can work with any Mastiff. The main thing any Mastiff breed needs is for the owner to see them as a working dog. If you got that, you're going to have an excellent dog. You're going to have a healthy dog. If you see them as a showpiece, if you see them as a house pet or a couch potato, then you're going to stay in the vet's office. And I don't care what it is. Even if it's a Tosa, you're going to have bad hips and joints. You're going to have all kinds of heart conditions and health conditions. I don't care what it is. Any Mastiff, honestly, any dog.
Right. It's a fact.
So, yeah.
So what was your your first Tosa like? I mean, you did say you were well experienced in it, but like what were some things you may have picked up? Well, no, excuse me, let me reiterate that. What are some things that you didn't know before that you messed up with that you for sure know now with all the experience you have and all the dogs you've owned?
A lot. I could say the first dog I got I had to learn a lot about reading body language. So the
It's
best way I
important.
can describe that is I studied biology in college, and I remember with our slides, like looking under a microscope, they would always tell us the colors can change, and if you're going to study and you're going to learn, you need to learn it in black and white so that you can identify structures, and
Mm.
then no matter what the colors are, you know what you're looking at, and that's how I studied there. And when I'm looking at my experience with my first Tosa, I think a lot of it was that
Mm.
black and white
Yeah.
because there wasn't a whole lot of sound. There wasn't a whole lot of show. It was
Right.
business, So with her, for instance, um, I remember dealing with food bowl aggression with towards other dogs, and it took me a while to figure out what was going on, just because there wasn't any sound. She wasn't growling out loud,
Yeah.
but the body language was there. And I remember one time we had a chow that was walking by her bowl, and the chow is what told me she was growling because again, I wasn't picking up on it with her, but looking at that chow and its response, it's like, why are you behaving like that? And I look at her and she's quiet, but you can
Yeah.
see her body's compressing and then going back out, compressing and then going
Mm.
back out like a dog that's growling. And you
Yeah.
can see her body's very tense and she's looking off to the side and she's giving all the body language. It's just like she's on mute.
Right.
And I was able to get on that right there and just learning, again, to see things in different perspectives.
Right.
With the first male I ever got, I learned a lot. I learned that boys are actually easier than girls in certain ways,
Mm.
and it doesn't take all that much to convince them of stuff. Um, and I've learned that sometimes I can be too close to my own problems and have to step back and take a more objective perspective to things. And that's helped me a whole lot, even as a trainer outside of working with my own dogs. I've learned a lot, and I got this breed to thank for it largely, and the dogs that I've worked with. And I think anybody can say that about any breed that they work with, but this is the one I say about mine.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you did. I mean, body language. I agreed. I think that can. I ain't gonna say my piece. We here for you.
Okay,
What?
shoot, it's okay.
Oh, what? I think it's important. Body language. I think it may be able to prevent a lot of things that have happened in the past. What do you think? Do you think? I think like people that own these breeds, like the Molossers, or even the breeds that can turn up on their owners. I think
Mhm.
they should take like a body language class just to understand what their
Yes,
dogs may do in a situation. How important do you think that would be to prevent
absolutely.
some
I,
of these
I
things that go on?
yeah, I think that'd be absolutely important. I can say, um, I don't know if this is okay, and if it's not, you just say, Corey, stop. But I'm gonna
Okay.
say, growing up in the household with a strong black woman, you learn how to read body language.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll put
For
it like
sure.
that. You learn how to read it real quick, and I don't need her to yell. I don't need her to say any of that. I got it. I can
She just
see
gotta look
from
at you.
I can see it from the look.
Yeah.
And it didn't
Yeah.
have to be just my mom. I remember sometimes my parents would let us stay the night at my grandma's, and I mean that textbook look from the choir row when you're sitting in the pews, like what I'm talking about. Like
Yeah. I know exactly what you're
sound,
talking about.
body language, it.
Yeah.
And same thing is true. My wife now, she'll remark about it. She'll be like, "I'm glad about how much I don't have to tell you," you know.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that she doesn't. I still got stuff I got to learn. Absolutely.
Right.
Um, Marriage is growth, but that being said, she'll say that, and I think the same thing is true with dogs. There's some stuff that's going to be unique to the breed, um, but there's some stuff that absolutely is going to apply no matter what you work with. I don't care if it's a Presa or a Yorkie. I don't care what it is. The main thing is going to be making sure that, again, you got those fundamentals down. You know what you're looking at and what you're dealing with.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I think that's spot on. I think I think if people could spend time getting to know some of the breeds that they work with or that they're looking to get into before they start working with them, and work with experienced handlers, people that are
Yeah,
actually training the dogs and stuff like that, to learn technique and the subtle nuances of working with some of those dogs, I think that'd go a long way.
for sure.
Mhm.
100%. I think this would be a dang good question for you. Um, what do you feel about the villainization of breeds? It's big in the Molossers, big in the American Pit Bull Terrier. What are your thoughts on it? Go as
I'll,
far as you want. Go as far as you want. I don't want to get you in trouble and nothing. Go as far as you want with this.
I'll tell you, um, I it's definitely something I'm wanting to talk about in the future. And typically, with stuff like that, especially stuff that tends to be controversial, I try to take time to sit down and write out exactly what I want to say, so that I'm clear and don't push things in the wrong direction
Yeah,
unintentionally. Um, but that in mind, I do think it's still worth talking about, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
for sure.
Um, I think that it is faulty logic when it comes to the demonization of breeds. I can't say that everybody's doing it for the same reason.
Right.
I think there are people that have had negative experiences with a given dog, and they think that the whole breed is like that, and they're genuinely scared.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
I
true.
think that there are news organizations that realize that fear sells things and gets people watching their advertisements, drives their ratings, sells more money or gets more
Mm,
money. And on the one hand, um, I get being about trying to, make your business and what you do more profitable, but I do worry that they're not considering enough of what the cost is,
yeah,
uh, long term, to dogs, to society. I think that there are people in between that have just heard it, and they've heard a lot of this information, and they've
mm,
also heard it from more authoritative and trusted sources, so they don't tend to check it on their own.
right.
Um, I can tell you this: I've had labs go at my throat. I've had Yorkies. I mean, they can't reach very high, but if they could, they
They would.
would.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've had you name it. Cocker spaniels try to rip my hand open, and bite and shake in a way that no pit bull terrier has ever done in my side anyway.
yeah,
Um, and when it comes down to it, I think that historically, if we go back, I think that a lot of what we see in the way we look at dog breeds is kind of based in that Victorian era, which, to be entirely honest, that's also the way they viewed people at that time.
yeah. It's true.
If if you look at a lot of people's last names, that was what they did.
Yeah,
So Cartwrights were Cartwrights, the Smiths were Smiths. And how did you know what you could marry when you got big or when you grew up? If your last name is Smith, you can marry a Smith or someone lower on the totem pole. That was it.
mm,
And a lot of that was in their breeding. I think a lot of that we've gotten away from in Western society for the most part, for people, but it's a slow and hard road for dogs.
yeah,
So
for sure.
I'll see people that'll look at a kelpie that's never been trained to herd, and it's like doing the stalking thing, looking at
Yeah,
sheep, and they'll be like, "This is my dog's breeding. They've been bred for this," and I'll be like, "Okay, but I got a Weimaraner right here, and I got a Yorkie right here, and a Chihuahua, and they all do the same thing. Okay, stalking behavior is canine behavior.
yeah,
Now, a herding trainer is going to hone that and refine it into actual things.
right.
But when it comes down to it, I mean, if I could, okay, I'm sorry. If I could sum this all up, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna put it this way. Um, Pit bulls have never been bred to be aggressive to humans. I don't care
Fact.
who you talk to. I don't care where you go. You talk to real dogmen. They've never been bred for that.
A
Period.
lot of people don't tolerate it. A lot of pit bull breeders don't tolerate that at all.
Do not. That is a hard coal any day
Yeah.
of the week, twice on Sundays.
For sure.
Any dog that does it, they call them man biters. They're labeled as a man biter, and that dog is pulled from any program. Period.
Yeah.
So the idea that the pit bull breed is somehow dangerous for any work that they do, and I'm not advocating dog fighting or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the idea that they are, because they do something that we disagree with, they're somehow more dangerous to society,
Right.
is absolutely illogical and irrational. And on the same token, we're worried about what a pit bull might do to a person, while we breed German Shepherds and Malinois to do those things to people.
Right.
And evaluate a good Malinois puppy by how well an 8-week-old puppy is hanging off of a man's arm. We say that dog's got drive. Good job. But if a pit bull did that, the person would probably be shot on sight. How dare you? Right? You know.
Yeah.
Same thing is true when it comes to how they treat other dogs. Like, granted, yes, pit bulls can be dog aggressive, especially depending on how they're raised. But Irish wolfhound, like wolfhound is in the name.
Yeah.
They were made to kill other dogs.
Right.
You know, Scottish deerhound was used for the same purpose. The Borzoi is the Russian wolfhound. Greyhounds are used to run down and kill coyotes. And I just want to educate people and say, you think you've seen aggressive when you see a pit bull with another dog. If you ever see a greyhound get after another animal or get after a coyote, I can guarantee you have never seen anything yet. And again, I'm not trying to, and I'm not trying to put down any breed. My goal here is not to put down any breed or, oh, hey, that's the next dog we should hate.
Right.
But to call into to question this logic that says we're worried that this dog may harm another breed while we breed these breeds to do it. And case in point, the most popular and widespread man-biting protection dog on the planet is the German Shepherd. It's also the most popular and widespread fighting breed worldwide. Like, a lot of people don't know that. Even in Korea, when the Tosa got to Korea and had to try to work its way up there as a breed in national recognition, it had to dethrone the German Shepherd first.
Wow.
You know, a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't know
but
that.
When you think about it, you know, again, kind of getting back to different motivations for why people buy into that narrative or push that narrative, which one are you going to believe is more aggressive? A German Shepherd, which we tend to think of as noble and all these other things, really good
American dog.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or the American Bully, which, I mean, look at all these muscles. It's not a matter of whether or not he can actually do anything with them, but he looks tough.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen him on a couple rap music videos, you know. So when it comes down to it, there's a lot behind that. But when we look at it and really tend to really sit down and think about it, it doesn't add up. It's not something that makes any sense.
Right.
You know? But yeah, so I'm sorry that was pretty long roundabout.
And that was amazing. No, that was amazing. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, I don't know how much time you got. I don't want to keep you all night.
I'm doing all right.
Okay, all right. Why do you think that happened with the Mastiffs? What was the cause of that? Because I see a lot of people say, even some, I know a little bit because I don't want to call anybody out, but some of these mixed breed, like these crossbred breeders that are breeding these crossbred performance dogs, they're like, oh yeah, the Mastiffs, they're gonna be they post pictures of like news articles saying, oh, Mastiff just bit a little girl or whatever. Like, why do you think they villainize the Mastiff so much and say, oh yeah, it's about they're not gonna have any more Mastiffs anymore?
Mm-hmm. Again, I think that's going to be, there's multiple motivations behind it. If we could say, you know, the elephant in the room is there is a personal or a professional short-term benefit to villainizing everybody else's dogs, and having your dogs as the answer dogs, right?
Yeah.
That's definitely out there. But by and large, I wouldn't say that's most people. I think there's a lot of people that simply buy into the narrative. Um, yes, there are some very unfortunate instances where mastiffs have done some
No,
things that
for sure.
are not right. But as far as saying that breeds as a whole are no good, I'm going to go ahead and say full stop. If you can't handle a presser, stay away from Jack Russell Terriers, right?
Yeah.
If you can't handle a Rottweiler, stay away from Jag Terriers. It's not about the size, right?
Right.
Because if you look at breed statistics, even in the USA, every breed has killed somebody. Pomeranians have killed people.
Yeah.
Jack Russell Terriers have killed people. And while the people that they've killed are smaller, like babies, toddlers, old and infirm people, and it's easier to imagine a bigger, huge mastiff taking on a full-grown man or something
Right.
like that. If you go to any of those funerals and talk to the people that are putting those babies in the ground and ask them, "Do you feel like this death counts?" It wasn't a full-size dog that killed your dog. Does it count?
Right.
Absolutely, it counts.
Yeah.
So what is the draw for saying that with mastiffs? I think it depends on the person, but it's certainly a more convenient narrative in certain ways. It's certainly a more believable story,
Right.
right? Um, so yeah, I think that part of the work that we're doing here in education is trying to help people to see, no, a dog's going to be what you make of it. And anybody who I don't care, like if somebody follows my channel and does all the training tips and all that other kind of stuff, but they come to me and present the idea that they think good dogs are bred and not made, I'm going to go ahead and say there's other breeders. You can go that way, because I don't need my dogs on the news. I don't need dogs that came from my dogs on the news. I don't want my breed on the news. I want them, on an AKC feature page. Perhaps I want them on, different breed organization feature pages. I want them on social media. I don't want them in the headlines. You know what I mean? And my experience has been the people who take what they're doing seriously are going to come prepared and ready to deal with what they've got in front of them.
For sure.
Uh,
Once
yeah.
again, an amazing statement. Now, you killing these questions I'm giving you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing job, man. So this is like the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. We 42 minutes in, but
Okay.
let's talk about the Tosa Inu's history, the development of the breed, some of the methods the Japanese breeders may have used, and talk about the fighting. We don't promote that at all. YouTube, just put that out there or anything. But just talk about their rich history in matches against other dogs and the style of it.
Yeah. So right now we're actually working through a series on this, and I'll say, like, I won't try to bore you with all the details on it, but the reason why I think that's important, and I appreciate the question. The reason why I think it's important with this breed in particular is because of how much bad information is out there. Again, a lot of it is more convenient, and it's coming from places that are, people trust, institutions, authorities, etc. But the more you dig into it, the more you see it doesn't add up. And the more you talk to the actual dogmen in Japan and Korea, the more you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is just not accurate. So if I could point out some stuff, I would say that if you really want to learn about the breed, dive into the samurai. There's so much about the samurai and Japanese history. If you can dive into that as much as you want, I guarantee you everything you learn will tie back to these dogs in one way or another.
Wow.
One of the things, like for instance, when we're talking about, when people look at the Tosa, they think of a fighting breed, and they think of, okay, this dog is supposed to be like a pit bull. They're supposed to be, after every dog they see.
Yeah,
yeah. And again, I'm not trying to badmouth the pit bulls. I'm just saying that's what the pit bull is expected to be. Part of the definition of gameness is that they're expected to take on all comers, all times.
Right.
Tosas are not supposed to be like that. A Tosa is supposed to be a dog that you can walk into a crowd and have no trouble. They should be a dog that you can walk past a row of dogs and you should have no trouble at all. Your dog should be pulling on the leash. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to it, what they're intended to do is recognize the difference between a dog that's in an unstable mind, reactive, nervous, anxious, fearful, territorial, all that other kind of stuff, which they do very well. And if you set those dogs next to a dog that's calm, confident, and assertive, you'll notice a very big difference. Those reactive dogs and those barky dogs and those aggressive dogs and stuff like that, Tosa's not going to care about him. He'll let him bounce off the side of him, just let it be. But a dog that's confident, calm, cool, collected, assertive, an actual challenger, a Tosa's going to see that, and immediately everything stands up, and they're like, you might never see it in their life prior to that, but that day, that's the one. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that if you go back to look at the samurai, that was what they were intended to be. And it's not to say that all samurai were like that. There were certainly good examples of less than what they should be.
Right.
But you take, for instance, when the Mongols came from China to try to conquer Japan, the samurai were what met them. The samurai forces are what met them. Right. And the samurai really struggled with that battle because the Mongols were using what's called phalanx warfare. And if you ever see, I don't know if you ever seen Lord of the Rings.
I haven't watched it all the way.
But you ever see those? There's long movies. But if you ever see that, you ever see like any of those Legion movies, 300, etc., where people are arranged in these big squares of soldiers, right? And they're marching forward like that. That's phalanx warfare.
Okay.
And you're essentially just sending your people into the meat grinder, fighting. If you watched any of any war movies, you'll see a lot of that. Samurai didn't fight like that. Samurai, they got commissioned and paid based off of who they took. So say your samurais are ranked 1 through 10, and 10 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. Anybody that a level 1 samurai kills is going to be money for him, and it's going to be good for him. Okay. Whereas a level 10 samurai is fighting against a level 5 samurai, he's going to be looked at with dishonor, and he's going to be looked at as, cheap, and he's not going to get paid for that. He should be fighting level 10s. He should be fighting generals. He should be fighting experienced warriors. That's his role and responsibility. So when these groups of soldiers get off of these boats and these big, huge hordes, and they're marching towards them to fight them, and the samurai are confused, like, how do I know what rank you are, or if you're even worthy of fighting me? And when I announce my battle cry of it's time to fight, who do I announce it to? Like, who are you?
Right.
And a lot of that trickled down into what they expect from a Tosa, in the sense that, again, Tosas are not they're not meant to fight against every dog they see. Yeah. They're meant to be that sort of calm, cool, collected presence that doesn't fight unless they need to.
Yeah.
Or unless they see a challenger that's worthy. If you look at another thing to look at to learn about Tosas would be sumo. Anything sumo. If you look at sumo wrestlers, and if they're fighting and stuff like that, they'll have this super intense fight, super intense match, and you'll see that one guy might knock the other guy clear out of the ring, but he's not going to help him up. He's not going to help him get up. He's not going to, do anything about it. There was one sumo wrestler recently, I forget his name, who after a match, he smiled and, nodded like that. And that was super controversial. It was like, oh my gosh, how dare he? Because they're expected to be stoic. They're expected to be stoic. So if you look at like our basketball players, for instance, they shoot the three and they, stirring as they're running down the court.
Yeah.
That's what we're expected to do here in the West. And I'm not saying anything wrong with that. It's just a different way.
Yeah.
Whereas in Japan, absolutely not. For a sumo, absolutely not. You should be straight faced. You should be stoic. And the way you show your respect to the other person is that stoicism. So again, when it comes to what a Tosa is expected to be, a lot of that is in there. These dogs, if you look at the rules that govern the ring, there's over 250 rules. Like a lot of people will say, oh yeah, I heard that they have to be silent. And they don't understand where that comes from or how that plays into the development of the dog's character. And they don't understand that there's way more rules than that. Yeah. And one of the rules is if the dog humps the air above another dog, they're disqualified. If a dog goes for quick and easy wins, they're disqualified. They will never get promoted. And the Japanese will rather have empty the Yokozuna like throne, be it human sumo, dog sumo. They'd rather have it sit empty for 50 years than to put somebody up there that they don't believe deserves it. So even if a dog is, doing all the things right as far as on paper for fighting, but they're not exhibiting the temperament, they're not exhibiting the character, the bushido, the warrior way that the dog should have, then it's not going to get promoted. It's not going to see, they're not going to see a higher rank. And it's not to say there are times where there's politics involved. Of course, there's people, so there's going to be politics at times.
Right.
But as far as it's concerned, there is so much to it. And if there's one thing I can communicate, it just be the richness of it. And you don't have to like dog fighting to respect and appreciate what they built and how through the years that came through. I was talking with people in a Shikoku group here recently, and not a Shikoku group, I'm sorry, a Nihon Kin group. So not just the Shikoku, but all the other recognized Japanese breeds. And we were having a debate about whether or not the Tosa should be included. And it was shocking to me to see how many of these people who study Japanese breeds believe that the Tosa is a Western breed. And again, if you looking at them from the outside in, they kind of look like a Mastiff. Okay, it's a Mastiff breed, right? People who really know the breed, people who really know the history. First off, the Tosa stud book in Japan has never been closed. It will never be closed. It is not closed currently. And if you say like modern Tosas, a lot of people, when they're talking about modern Tosas, they're talking about Tosas going back to the 1930s, ever since they started looking more like a Mastiff and more like Western breeds. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you that there's no such thing as a modern Tosa in that sense. You might have a 10-year period. You can say Tosas in this 10-year period, they were similar. But by the time you get to the next 10-year period, you're looking at dogs that have had infusions from different dogs, different breeds. They went in different, they were grown in different ways. You can, like, people look at the Tosa and they'll say, well, this dog is from the 1940s. And I can tell because this color pattern or this phenotype. And that's not true. You can find dogs today that look exactly like that. But it's a matter of where you look and what fits the ring. And it'll go in the style, it'll go out of style as the rules change. The dogs will follow the rules and what makes the most sense at that time. And when we look at kind of how the Western breeds got added into the Tosa in the first place, it was because there was already a system in place for adding breeds that weren't Shikoku. So prior to the Western breeds showing up, if somebody from Akita moved to the island of Shikoku and brought their Akita with them, then that Akita would mix with the local dogs. If it showed any kind of promise in the ring, it's going to be added to the Tosa.
Yeah.
What they care about is the work and the quality of the work. And the dogs are named by region. I can show you pictures of dogs that are called Akita, but it's clearly a Tosa.
Yeah.
But it's called Akita because it was born and raised in Akita. That's what
Wow.
it was. So there was no breed clubs and pedigrees back then. It was, this is what they are and this is what they do, you know. So the idea that the Shikoku, when the English breeders or the English breeds got to Japan, the idea that the Shikoku was a pure breed in the Victorian sense, absolutely out of pocket. No, it was a mix of the best fighting dogs, and they happened to be from the region of Shikoku. And when they saw the European breeds, it wasn't a fire sale of, oh, hey, that dog's big, that dog is strong, that dog is quick, you know, and things like that. Because again, to this day, they don't care about your size. They don't care about how tough you look. They don't care about your quick wins. They don't care about any of that. It's about your character and your temperament.
Right.
That is how you make Token, which is a fighting dog. So they didn't just go and get an entire breed and say, we're going to add this breed to the Tosa. They looked at and evaluated individuals, and it was based on the dogs that made it out to the farms and the rural areas in Japan, not breeds that never left Tokyo. So Great Danes, nope. Dog de Bordeaux, nope. There were 4 breeds: Mastiffs, Bulldog type, Pointer type, likely the old Spanish Pointer, and the Shikoku, or the so-called Shikoku of that time. And since then, you know, again, if they find something that they like, they're going to put it in there. And I'll tell people here in the West, look, if you like Tosas today, then you like the way they got here. Okay. Right. If you try to make it into a Victorian breed, I pray you fail. I love you to death. Don't get me wrong, but I pray you fail. You know, in the sense, it's not doing them any favors, and all just so you can have what you consider a consistent look. Shoot, man, I can preach on this. Like, Great Pyrenees looked like Great Pyrenees before somebody wrote a standard. Kangals looked like Kangals before somebody wrote a standard. So obviously you don't have to have a breed standard in order to create a consistent type. You don't have to inbreed dogs very closely together in order to create a consistent type. You do not. But if you let work show you what works, you will get a consistent type. It's going to take a little longer, and it's not going to be as tight as 25 to 27 inches at the shoulder, only in this color, no white spot on the chest, cat-like feet, etc., etc. It's not going to be as tight as that.
Right.
But it'll be a dog that does the work, you know. And the Tosa has been that. They've been healthier for it. They are not a genetic bottleneck. So when I look at the breed, and I'm importing dogs from Japan, I'm importing dogs from Korea, I'm well aware of the process that they go through to, if they want to infuse other dogs, that it is possible. I'm also aware of the fact that it's not something everybody's going to do, because of the fact that they're not interested in just adding other breeds for the heck of it. Right. These are extremely pragmatic people. Unless they need a female to create more dogs, then female puppies don't make it past their first day of life. Unless a male dog is already showing promise, then they're going to cull by the time that dog gets to 90 days of age. Wow. So when it comes to it, they're not just looking, oh, hey, the Fela looks like a neat dog, let's add it into the breed for the heck of it. No. Right. These are very pragmatic people. They are thinking about what costs. They're thinking about what practical is and what can continue the tradition. So you might have 1 or 2 people that do it, but they have to have the funds and resources. They have to have the patience and time and staying power, because it's not just you add in a dog and all of a sudden you have Tosas again. You say you have Tosa and then dog A, which is not a Tosa. You breed those 2 dogs together, you do not have Tosas. You have a mix. Yeah. And that mix, if it shows promise, it's not going to be every puppy, but if you find one that shows promise and shows the character, shows the temperament, shows the aptitude and the ability and health, then you breed that back to a Tosa. So that's generation 3, right? And you got to breed back to a Tosa again, generation 4. And if that dog goes through the ranks and earns its title, then that dog is Tosa, you know. Okay. So I don't worry about it, because I know that they're, again, continuing to stay true to that work. I know that it's not something that, you know, somebody just decided, oh, this is a rare color or a nice coat length and they want to throw it in there. No. Right. and I trusted them, and I have never been disappointed by anything they produce. And I've had my dogs in all kinds of situations, city, suburban, and rural, and I have never once been disappointed by a dog I've worked with or had.
Gotcha.
So for what it's worth, that's that. I know that's a little bit.
No, it was good, man. Like I said, you've been knocking these questions out. Like you've been doing your thing.
Yes, sir.
It's quality information. Talk about why the you stated I think 4 breeds. I'm pretty
Yes,
sure.
sir. Yes, sir.
State why they were used and how they benefited the Tosa.
Um, so I'll say when it comes to it, just understanding that, especially the first breeds being added or the first dogs being added, um, I think the country was opened in 1865 to foreign tourism, and it had not been opened since 1330, like
Wow.
1330. Wait, no, it had to be after that. I think it was the 1500s, but in any case, there was a significant amount of time, so 300 years ish, somewhere around there. And when the Europeans brought over their dogs in the 1860s, these were not people like the kennel club had barely started. Most dogs did not have a standard, and there was no, excuse me, there was no rubric by which these dogs were judged.
Yeah.
So when I say pit bull, and if you get on me about it afterwards, I'll send you some pictures that you can share. But when I
Okay.
say
Cool.
pit bull, or the bulldog type, you can look at some of the dogs from that time period, and some of them look like an English bull terrier. Some of them look like a pit. Some of them look like a very short nose, extremely short nose staffy that looks like an old English bulldog, like the original English bulldog.
Yeah.
Uh, Same thing with the Mastiff. They weren't these heavy lumbering giants that you see today. Mastiff history, if you study it, there was a time period where Mastiffs had to have the middle toe on their feet removed because they were owned by commoners. And this was like the time of landowners and serfs, the people that lived on the land but didn't
Mm-hmm.
own it. The landowners, the dukes, the duchess, the nobles, those were the ones that were allowed to hunt. They owned the property, they owned the animals that were on it. And the problem they were having was that the mastiffs were illegally running down deer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So if you can imagine an English mastiff that's in fit and shape and condition to be able to run down a European stag and dispatch it, okay, that's the dog we're talking about here.
You know, not to cut you off or anything. I recently just learned so the English Mastiff we know from back then is
Mhm.
extinct. It's not the same dog as now of today.
Yeah,
That's why they changed the name to Mastiff. They use Bordeaux and Bull Mastiff and might have been one more breed I can't remember,
Saint
but
Bernard. They
Saint
use the
Bernard.
Saint
Yep,
Bernard.
that's why I have the long coats. Yeah, yep. But yeah,
Yep.
that's what they use now. That's why the dogs are different from back then. Before
Yeah,
the World War, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, and that's one, like, this is a side topic, but if I could sum this up, I'd say, um, if you want to look at a study, an interesting study on dogs, look at human conflict and how it affects dog breeds.
Yeah.
Um, if you look at dogs that went extinct, look at dogs that nearly went extinct, I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, it's due to a war.
Mm,
Uh, it's due to human conflict that affects dogs negatively.
yeah.
So it's not just the mastiff. If you look at the number of dog breeds that went extinct and either had to be recreated or had to be rebred from like 10 or 12 dogs, Tosa, Akita, English Mastiff, Irish Wolfhound, the Cane
Yeah.
Corso, Neos, Dog de
Yeah.
Bordeaux, Bull Mastiff. You go down the list, there's really not, especially when you get into the big dogs, if they weren't functional during the war, like a specific purpose in the war, most of them were considered illegal in most countries in the world. They
Wow.
were, food was rationed, so people were not allowed to feed big dogs. If the dogs couldn't work or themselves be food, depending on which country you're in, they were illegal. And that's why Tosas had to be exported to Korea during the world wars. in the first place, and Taiwan. So when it comes to it, yeah, that's absolutely a thing, you know. But if you look at the Mastiff of that era, it's just like you said, it's a different dog. Heck, if you look at the Great Dane of that era, like we talked about how they had a 2-year lifespan at the turn of this century.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the turn of the previous century, you're talking about dogs that were banned from dog shows. And the reason why is because on multiple instances, the Great Danes that had been brought there for show got loose and killed other dogs. Like that aggressive. And again, we're talking about a time period where we're talking about the Bullenbeißer. That was the boxer. Dog fighting was legal. So bull terriers at that time were no slouch. Pit bulls at that time were no slouch. And Great Danes just went and demolished a couple of dog shows. Wow. So if you want to talk about function then versus function now, again, I'm not advocating dog fighting, but if you're talking about a test to see what a dog is capable of, nobody's going to put money on a Great Dane being able to do that these days.
No.
Right. Especially not show dogs. So when it comes to like looking at the bulldogs of that era, the Mastiffs of that era, heck, even the pointers of that era, you're talking about some serious, hard-working dogs. And when I say the pointer, a lot of people will look at the German Shorthair pointer.
Yep.
I don't believe that dog was really around a lot in Germany until 1914. Yeah. And then they would have had to, from 1914, immediately get to Japan and be dispersed throughout the countryside. I don't see that happening. If you look at the English pointer and the German Shorthair pointer, and look at especially the English pointer compared to some of the Tosa of that time, you see so much in common. But again, people with English pointers in that time weren't looking to export them.
Right.
But there was a dog that both of those breeds had in common as their progenitor. The progenitor of, as I understand it, all pointing breeds. The old Spanish pointer. And if you look up like the again, there's a recreation of it these days. Not the same. But if you look up the original dog, you see a dog that even in descriptions had bone. Like this was a substantial animal. Broad skull, broad muzzle. This could be a dog that you could easily see. First off, somebody looking at and saying, okay, I can see how that dog can contribute to my fighting dogs. Versus the lighter boned, thinner, kind of wispy looking pointers of today.
Yeah.
And then two, they had a reputation of being kind of gamey. So again, not hard to imagine. And then three, and this is the big kicker, a lot of the breeds, if you look at like the Nihon Ken Foundation and a lot of the breeds that are recognized, the vast majority of the breeds historically in Japan were working dogs, and the vast majority of the work they were used to do was hunting.
Yeah.
So the idea of people coming out there with a hunting dog and being able to get that hunting dog spread around, that makes more sense to me.
Right.
So I don't have enough evidence to say it resolutely, but my best educated guess, that's the dog. And if you look at their history, they go back far enough that they could have very well been well established enough by that time to make that trip and be used in that way. But again, there were other dogs tried. There were people that tried Great Danes. There are certainly people that are going to try any breed that shows promise, any dog that shows promise, or looks like it might have potential. But the rubric is still there. You have to be able to get into the ring and do what Tosas do. And just being big and bad and tough, that's not it. That's not all there is to it. I think a good example, like a good modern day example, if I could speak on a different breed for a moment, it would be the Central Asian Shepherd. If you look at the Western Alibi versus the Aboriginal Central Asian Shepherd, the actual Central Asian Shepherd, you'll see they might as well be two different breeds. They don't look the same. They don't act the same. They don't walk the same. They don't function the same as far as if you look at them side by side. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that in the West, we try to retire big dogs and just put weight on them and make them a big dog, right? But if you look at, I don't care what dog show you pick, the best Central Asian Shepherd of any dog show ever in the West, pick the top 5. And you take them out over to the stands, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, etc. You will find that none of them would last a week in their original work. These are not just dogs that are livestock guardians. They have to be able to be nomadic, so they're constantly on foot. Any hip problems and all that other kind of stuff. We're sitting over here testing for OFA, and it may or may not produce good dogs, because dogs with good hips can produce dogs with bad hips and vice versa and all this. Out there on the plains, if you got bad hips, you're not going anywhere.
No.
Okay? And that's the test that they need, right? And then if you look at what the dogs are expected to do, they don't feed them. The shepherds don't feed them.
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, they might throw them a sandwich if they've got one, but they're not they're taking it on their responsibility to feed those dogs. Those dogs have to hunt for themselves. They have to provide for themselves, and they have to make sure no sheep are lost. You know, and I've talked about this recently. Afterbirth. This is kind of, gritty, but just throwing the idea out there. A fresh born baby, lamb, goat, whatever it is they're supposed to be watching, llama, I don't care, is covered in stuff that's going to be enticing to a dog. And if you take those top 5 show dogs and throw them out there, would you leave them starved over a week with that newborn baby? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nobody's going to do that.
No.
Right? And when it comes to the work being the rubric versus just a written standard of what the dog is supposed to look like being the rubric, you're going to end up with two very, very, very different worlds. And just like looking at the Tosa, like tying it back in, I feel like there's a little bit of a pull going in the breed, say over the last 50 years and continuing to this day. What is the identity of the breed going to be in the West? Is it going to be another Mastiff that shows up at dog shows and stands? I don't know what else they do. Not to knock it. Don't get me wrong, not to knock it. But are they going to be that? Or are they going to be a dog that is still functional, is still capable? I want people to be able to know what it's like to bike as hard and as fast as you can for as long as you can, and have a Mastiff that's right there with you next to that bike, looking at you like, okay, when are we going to go? Oh, okay, when are we going to go? Okay, when are we going to go? Going as fast as you can, floor to the metal, pedal to the metal in a golf cart. And same thing, you got a Mastiff that's like jogging with you, like, okay, but what we got past this? I want them to know what it's like to have a dog that the breed is just so unique. They are a presence. The calmness, the quietness, the stillness, the strength, the courage, the temperament, the character. To have a big dog that you can take into a crowd and it doesn't have to fight anybody.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it's perfectly fine to not. You might go your whole lifetime and not see it. But when it's there, oh my goodness. Like if you have somebody dumb enough to try you, if you have I remember one time I had a male that absolutely wonderful dog, gorgeous dog, did just fine taking him to dog parks. And I remember one time I was working with him and fireworks were going off and we were working on being calm. And I had him laid down on the ground in front of me. This was out kind of small town. And so it was dark when it was dark. outside.
Yeah.
And fireworks were going on. I had him laid down on his side, right there. And I remember one of the dogs that's usually out there, usually getting into trouble, trying to talk to trying to put every other dog down. This Labrador, came out of nowhere and was behind me, and I had no idea he was there or that he was coming up. And I don't think he was going to do anything super bad, but typical to himself, he was coming up in a very, very rude fashion, and he's probably going to try to show the dog that's now on the ground and take his licks, right? And I just remember before I knew what happened, my dog Mufasa had gotten up. Like first off, he let out a growl, which I'm like, why the heck are you growling at me? And and I mean, the growl was just like that. Before I could really process what he was growling about or growling at, he was up from laying down, like football minute drills where you're laying down and got to get up and tackle somebody. He was laying down on his side and was up and then flew past me. And I'm telling you, jaws open, like right past me. His cheek, like upper lip, brushed my face. It was surgical precision. And the next thing I knew, behind me, there was a dog screaming bloody murder. A dog that I didn't even know was there, but he did.
Yeah.
And he had that dog and was like immediately like, absolutely not. This is not going to happen, and you're going to pay for it. But just the same, every male Tosa I've ever had, I've been able to tell him, no, let it go.
Yeah.
In the middle of that, and they let it go.
Wow.
Okay. You can have your best police trained German Shepherd, best police trained Malinois, best police trained whatever, and one of the hardest things to teach is a reliable out. Right. Whereas a Tosa is never not present-minded enough to simply stop.
Right.
I want people to know what it's like to be with that kind of dog, to experience a dog that's not just big, but intelligent, observant. You don't have to use words as much. They read your thoughts. Kind of like working with a dog or a German Shepherd. They're athletic enough. Now, they're not going to, I've never seen one jump an 11-foot wall, but they can certainly clear a 4-foot fence without touching it. They can clear a 6-foot fence without touching it, most of them. Now, again, I'm not saying just the dogs that you see on social media where somebody has a 30-inch or a 28-inch male and it's 180 pounds. Absolutely not. No.
Right.
But if you have a functional weight Tosa, you're going to surprise a lot of people. There's nothing that's getting under it. There's nothing that's getting over it, period. And the precision that they can do, I've seen those dogs do things in midair that most dogs can't do on all fours.
Wow.
It is surgical precision. I had somebody who was working with one of my dogs. It wasn't somebody I gave permission to go and see my dogs, and he still went. And I remember him saying that one of the dogs he went by went at him, and it missed, and he dodged. And immediately I was like, okay, I need you to take me seriously when I tell you that if I don't introduce you to them, you don't go back there.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to get this toy and I'm going to put it on a string. And let's see if we can make this dog miss. And I showed him, like, with this dog could jump. He could get that toy 10 feet in the air. Now, again, he's not climbing an 11-foot wall, but if you think of a dog of that size, standing up with their back legs, they're already 6 feet. It's just a 4-foot jump that can do that, So when it comes to, again, the adjustments that he would make, the way he would contort his body and get that lure, there was no question about it. He didn't miss. He warned you, and he was telling you, back off, and it's one of those things, again, just kind of knowing that your dog has the equipment and the tools to deal with whatever situation that they come up against, but you can take them anywhere. They're not a liability.
Right.
You know, I want more people to be able to experience that. And it's not to say that this is the only breed that can do that. I know that everybody has their favorite breed, and they should talk about it like that,
For
right?
sure.
But it is to say, I do believe that the Tosa has a unique way that they go about it. And I think it'd be awesome if more people can see that and experience that firsthand. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Man, let's talk about so I think I saw you post this. Talk about where does the black coat and the Tosa Inu originate from?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. You said, what is
Did
the
I?
black coat of Inu? It could
Where?
be it could be me. We're out here in the middle of nowhere, so it could be
Okay.
but you said, what is the black coat, and then it cut out.
Where does the black coat and the Tosa Inu originate from?
Yeah. So when it comes to the Tosa, the black coat comes from one dog. This dog named Roku. And I got a picture of that guy. He is, I believe, 9 years old at the time of that picture. And if you look at him, there's nothing about that dog that suggests his age. But he is a common ancestor of all black Tosas. From best we can tell, all black and rust Tosas also tie back to him. And I don't know if this is one of the questions or not.
Go ahead.
One thing I would say is that when you're looking at the Tosa as a breed, there's a lot of nuance there. And this would be one of the points that I would use to discuss this with people who you'll have breeders that are out there and they're saying their dogs are, the real deal, authentic Tosas, et cetera, and they're related to champions, descendants of champions, et cetera. And the reason why all black Tosas have that common ancestor is because of the way the breed is. There's no such thing as a pet Tosa in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay? No such thing as a pet Tosa in Korea, in Taiwan. These aren't dogs that are kept for companion animals like that. The only dogs that make it even to 18 months of life are dogs that show and demonstrate that work capacity prior to it.
Right.
The only dogs that are bred are champions. So if I tell you, hey, we got 11 dogs here and all of them are descendants of champions, am I lying? No. But is it being honest, representing it honestly? No. Because even in the West, if you look at a Tosa's pedigree, you won't make 4 generations back before you see Go, Ran, Tho in the name of the dogs that you're looking at. And the reason why is because the dogs are from Japan.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as a Tosa that's not championship bloodline. There's no such thing as a Tosa that's not from working lines in that regard. Now, there could be people in the West that have bred them for a few generations for show purposes. But even then, you can have a show dog in an Irish setter, for instance, that has lines that have been 50, 60 years removed from any type of work. Absolutely. Even longer than that. But in the Tosa, you don't have that. For one, they haven't been in the West long enough for that. And then for two, I don't care what breeder you're looking at. If they have the top-ranked Tosa in every dog show in the FCI, and somebody in Japan, a dog man in Japan, say he's no longer with us, but if he was still here, Genkichi Sudo called them up and was like, hey, I got, this dog from my Ibuki line that's a Meikin Yokozuna, and do you want him? There is not a breeder on the planet that would not set aside every breeding plan they ever had for the next years, go and get that dog. And if it means they have to restart from scratch with that dog, they will do it, So again, there's no such thing as a Tosa that's not working lines. There's no such thing as a Tosa that's not any of that. So there's that, and then there's also the fact that I think that there are good, genuine, wonderful people that are in this breed, and I've worked with many of them, and I absolutely will continue to work with them because I watch the people over the dogs. I don't care what lines you've got. And when it comes to some of the other people, and this goes with any breed, you'll have people that find their identity in the dog, as opposed to having their identity separate and working with the dog because it's a passion. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, and they will do a lot of salesmanship in that. And one thing I will say is that they might say they have the best, they have genuine, they have the authentic, the true deal, and all that other kind of stuff. I can guarantee you that if you took those people and sat them in a ring in Kochi, in Akita, in Hokkaido, sat them in a ring in any of those places, and had them, hey, could you stand up and say, to these guys here what you've been saying on Facebook, and Instagram and all that stuff? Like, could you say that a little louder so they can hear you? These are very stoic people in Japan. These are very stoic people in Korea, but they would actually bust a gut laughing. They would not be able to control themselves if they heard somebody from the West say something like that. And I want to say that, again, like, looking at the way the breed got to be, kind of just tying it back into the black color, looking at the way the breed got to be the way they are in Japan to this day, throughout history, there are some very important cultural and traditional aspects that we just absolutely left behind. The black Tosa didn't get added to the breed standard until my lifetime. Brindle wasn't a thing until recently. I think the last 10 to 15 years. So many different colors, and it's so many different colors that they've got right now. They'll allow different shades of red and fawn, but that wasn't always a thing. They had to be red as far as that breed standard was concerned. If it wasn't red, it wasn't a thing. And what I see is Tosas come in piebald. They come in black and rust, like the Rottweiler, the black with tan points. They come in blue. They come in any color because these guys don't care about looks. The work is the work, not a look. And they define the breed by the work. I've been following a lot of these guys. I've been learning from a lot of them, and they can look at a dog and they can tell whether or not it's got Tosa in it. They can tell you how much. They can tell you if it's 1/3 Tosa, 1/4 Tosa. They can look at it work, and they can tell you if it's working like its Tosa ancestor or if it's working like another ancestor. Like, these are very, very, very well experienced people, and they have different levels of academic education. Some of them are just normal everyday people,
right?
But they know their dogs. They know them well. They can look at the dogs that I've got here. I got a male from the Netherlands, and they can look at that male, and despite the fact that he's 2 generations removed in Germany or the Netherlands, and then prior to that has a couple of dogs on his pedigree from Japan, they can look at that male and they can tell you, this is the kennel in Japan that his lines came from, and this is how closely related he is to them at this point, how far removed. The amount of knowledge and understanding that they have there is breathtaking, and they don't need to look at his pedigree to tell that. They can look at, you can get a Korean farm dog, rescue a Korean Tosa from a meat farm, and take that dog to a dog show. There are several that absolutely would shut down every dog show they show up at. You would not be able to tell the difference. There are, I know people with Bully Cutta Tosa mixes. You would not be able to pick that dog out of it. I know a Bully Cutta that looks like one of our Tosas so much that he fooled me, right? But these guys, They know it. They know it. They know it. And they know it well. And I just see how much we miss out on knowledge, on understanding, on opportunities to see the breed in a different light because of what we limit ourselves to in the West. Right. Irish setters are only coming in red. Rhodesian Ridgebacks can only come in red, even though up until the 1950s and 60s, they came in brindle. German short-haired pointers can't come in black and tan points. But they do. Mastiffs can't come in. Yeah. Wow. English Mastiffs come in piebald. And
yeah.
It's not hard to imagine why with the recent infusion of the St. Bernard.
Right.
So like all these different breeds have all these, they have a much broader genetic base. And if you look at Tosas, even piebald itself, I've recently learned working with the different geneticists that that white that you see on their chest on some dogs is something that the standard considers a fault. Because again, they think that the only way a Tosa can show up is in red. But the broadness of that white on their chest shows that on the S locus, one of the color gene locuses, they're SSP, which means solid and spotted. So that means that dog itself is carrying piebald. If it was bred to another dog that was SSP, you would have piebald Tosas. Now, the standard is going to tell you that that can't happen. So everybody that subscribes to the standard is going to say, you bred in some English Bulldog or some English or some St. Bernard. They look at the color and they say, oh, yeah, you obviously had to do that. We got a black with tan points male here, and everybody's trying to find in the pedigree where the Rottweiler's at, because that's the only breed that comes black with tan points, right? But again, that just shows the Western limited understanding of dogs versus the vast breadth of knowledge that's out there. The Shikoku came in black with tan points. Pit bulls, the original, like the actual working pit bulls, don't have limits on colors. Black with tan points can happen.
Wow.
English Mastiffs, one of the biggest signs that any Mastiff breed is a Mastiff breed is because of the fact that they can come with black and tan points. It's not just the Rottweiler. If you look at the Tibetan Mastiff, if you look at like just go down the list and you'll see even the Boer Bull recently has been sparking controversy because of black with tan points.
Yep,
it's not because people had to breed in Rottweiler. It's a Mastiff. Don't be surprised. That's a Mastiff color. You can find English Mastiffs occasionally in that color.
Yeah, I think I was about to read an article on live about the black and tan points, and it said it can't come out. It's not of a infusion or crossbreeding. It can come out at some point. Yeah.
Exactly. Now it requires, like, the more we learn about genetics these days, the more we can see there's interactions with other locus, your K locus, your A locus, etc. They have to be a certain thing so that you can see the black with tan points. Otherwise, it's there, you just can't see it. And then the black with tan points itself, on that locus, it has to be AT. So it's a recessive gene. So same thing is true for the dilution gene, which when people look at Tosas, they think that dilution is not a thing. And again, talking with geneticists, they'll tell you, especially on a breed as rare as the Tosa, that phenotype, that expression of blue can disappear for 20 or 30 years and then pop up. And it's not because somebody did anything crazy with their breeding or did anything. It's just the stars aligned and that's what you got.
Yeah.
So just looking, I'm sorry, I know we're going way out on this, but
it's all right. It's all good.
Looking at the bigger point I always try to make when talking about the black dogs, it's how it relates to the breed as a whole. Your Western idea is that a dog can only come within a 2-inch window span. It has a 10-pound window span, and it only comes in a handful of colors, because if it's a different color, it's a different breed.
Right.
But if we do that, we are actively working to create a genetic bottleneck, and it is not helping the breed. I want to see much more responsible breed management for dogs as a whole. But if I can do nothing else, it's going to be for this breed. So a lot of the education that we're getting and then sharing is coming along that line. When I see a black dog is accepted, but a black and tan points dog is not accepted, and they come from the same ancestor, and that ancestor exists. The reason why we know he exists is because he did his thing. He earned the title of making Yokozuna one of the youngest dogs to do so. He was a stellar dog. There's absolutely no reason why we should say this part of his genetic code is great, that part of his genetic code, not so much. And again, it's not because if we had a blue dog that had blue a dilution alopecia, if we had white dogs that were deaf or blind, okay, I get why you would cut that out. I get that. What I don't is why you're cutting out dogs just because you've never seen that color before. You're cutting out dogs just because you feel like if it has that color, it looks too much like something else, and you don't have a broad enough understanding of this breed, which, you know, I really, really, really would like one day to bridge that gap between Japan, Korea, and the West, because there's so much information that they have, and knowledge. Some of the best ideas and best information I've gotten on how to raise Tosas, how to keep them healthy, their nutrition and growth and development, comes directly from or indirectly from the Japanese and Korean dog men that I've gotten to have a look at my dogs. You know, so yeah.
Man, you like I said, man, you be killing these questions. Like, I just it's hard to process everything you stated. I think this was a great episode. I'm gonna ask you just one more question about
Yes, sir.
the American Tosa Club. Talk about it.
Yeah.
The process of developing it. What do you plan to do with it? How do you plan to separate yourself from other breed clubs and maybe not leave a bad taste in some people's mouth as we hear about
Yeah.
other breed clubs and what they've done to people?
Yeah. I think that culture matters in the breed club. I think that starts with the management. And I think that there's a big emphasis on balance between people's choice, as far as who gets to take what position, and lead in what way, and also demonstrated character. So we try to be clear with our code of ethics on things that will and won't be tolerated, and how you treat other people, how you work with other people. Um, and if people meet those code of ethics, then they meet the requirements to be elected for any of those roles, or join and take on any of those roles. That doesn't mean that we have to see eye to eye on everything. When I was writing the code of ethics, I was like, inbreeding is absolutely not okay. Never do it. And I had like 3 people that were like, and these are grown people older than me, twice my age, that essentially called me up and were like, "You can't make me." And I was like, you know what, I can't. And you know, sitting there and talking to them and understanding what their perspective was, I think that people who know how to do it responsibly, it's not my place to tell them what they do on their yard. But just as long as they're responsible with what they produce, and have guarantees, take the dogs back if anything's wrong, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I think we all agree is important. So realizing that I don't have to have all the ideas. Other people can have good ideas. Other people can have different ways to do stuff, and it still gets the same bottom line. You know, culture, and character. I'm not going to make an excuse for the dogs to justify my own lack of character or my own poor treatment of others. You know, I can't say, hey, for the breed's sake, I'm going to treat this person terribly, and it'll be better for the breed. No, not at all. Honestly, the reason why we're the only kennel in the West today is because of the fact that there was a culture of dysfunction for a while that put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, ran a lot of people away from the breed. And we're working to undo that. But with the TCA, what I'd like to see in the future is I'd like to see a clear standard for the breed. And what I mean by that is we are not affiliated with the AKC at this time. They have approached us to work towards becoming the breed club for the breed, but there are certain things that they require as just a part of their procedures. It's not necessarily trying to be bad or anything, but they don't gel with where we're at or where we're trying to be.
Right.
Things like only members in the U.S. We're not trying to isolate ourselves of the dogs, especially at this point. They're wonderful people, wonderful breeders in Canada, wonderful people in Canada. There are wonderful people in South America, and they need support just as much as we do. So we all work together, and we're all in this together. There are requirements for a minimum number of dogs in order to join the AKC, at least like 400 or 300. And when we're talking about large breeds, you want to build slow. For the dog's sake, you want to build and grow slow. You don't want to just mass produce a bunch of dogs. That's how you get a lot of really bad health issues and a lot of really bad situations. And then also, again, the thing I don't want to see is dogs on the news. I don't want my homeowner's insurance company calling me up and saying, "Oh, you have Tosas." You know, I like it when they ask if we have dogs and I tell them it's Tosas. What's that? A Japanese Mastiff. I have no idea what that is. They're fine. Great. You know, I like that. And I want to be the one to introduce them to what the breed can be as opposed to, you know, Katie Couric or whoever, you know, on the news. So when it comes to it, when I say a standard for the breed, I want to see, and this is me speaking for myself. I can't necessarily speak on the whole organization. We're talking about stuff and we're working stuff out, but I don't want to get ahead of them. But for me, myself, what I want to see is I want to see a way to get the dogs off the couches and working and functional. They can do just about anything you put in front of them. And it's a shame to have them all living in retirement from birth.
Yeah, that's a question we just had. Can a Tosa do hog hunting and personal protection?
Absolutely, do both. In fact, speaking on the Japanese dogmen, one thing they recommend for people who are in countries where dog fighting is illegal, they recommend hunting with large predators or aggressive quarry. So hogs are good, any kind of catch work. And there have been several people here in the West and here in America specifically who have used their dogs for catch work. And then as far as protection work, the Japanese dogmen are flatly against the use of Tosa Inu for protection work. I do think a lot of that has to do with imagination. And if I may expound on that. What I'll say is, when we study the rules of the ring in Japan, like I said, there's 250 rules. If a Tosa in the ring makes a sound, they're disqualified. And it's not just because these are, you know, quiet guys who like quiet. No. Now, granted, these aren't dog behavior therapists that have a degree in such and such from so-and-so place, but these are people who have been working with this breed, or should I say rather with this concept, for a millennia, at least, at this point. So they may not have a textbook answer for reactivity and the new words and ways that we describe certain behaviors here in the West, but they certainly know what certain behaviors lead to. So when they see a dog make a sound beyond, I think, a minute or a minute and a half, depending on where they are in rank, they know that it's a sign of the beginning of the end. The dog is starting to lose their will, and they'll pull that dog out of it. If they see a dog taking steps away from the other dog, they'll pull that dog out of it. Again, it shows that they don't have that will. If they see a dog, like I said before, humping the air, it's not just because they are stoic and they don't want to see showboating, but they see that the dog's motivation is coming from somewhere that it should not be. And when you look at like fighting breeds worldwide, they don't all have the same motivations. They're not intended to. Bully cuttas are intended to be able to fight, but it's only to demonstrate how they would confront a large aggressive predator. So when you look at a bully cutta match, you'll see these guys are coming in, they're petting the dogs, they're moving the dogs around and stuff like that. And again, it's because of what it's specifically intended to test in that dog. When it comes to the Tosa, again, the matches are specifically intended to test and create a certain type of character. So when we take those rules and juxtapose them onto boar hunting, you find it doesn't actually match. Now, if you're just looking at it on the surface and say fighting something tough and fighting something tough, it's going to look like it matches up.
Yeah.
But if a Tosa is put on a boar and a Tosa barks or growls while fighting that boar, who's going to pull the Tosa and say, okay, you don't work, put that one away and go get another dog? Nobody's going to do that. If the Tosa, like with a boar that's 600 pounds, like one of these big monsters, or even just one that's a few hundred pounds, that's going to outweigh a working dog quite a bit. And a smart dog is going to stay out of the way of that. So when the Tosa in that instance takes 3 steps back, who's going to call it? Well, sorry, bud, you don't have it. And who's going to say it's a better idea for their, at best, working proper weight, 130, 140, 150 pound Tosa to confront a 300, 400, 500 pound pig? Just straight up run in there. No, that's how a dog gets killed. A bear. That's how they get killed, right?
Sure.
So it's not the same. And when we look at what the Tosa is supposed to be, are they supposed to be that brawler? Or are they supposed to be more like the samurai? They're supposed to be more like that samurai. Right. They're supposed to be calm, cool, collected, looking for an actual challenge. And if you look at Tosas in the ring in Japan, both dogs want to be there. There's no such thing as a match where one dog wanted to be there and one dog didn't. If the other dog doesn't want to be there, they're not even going to have the match. If the dog decides midway that it doesn't want to be there, the match is called, because nothing beyond that point is worth anything, right? If you look at hunting, the only reason why a pig is fighting is because it can't get anywhere else. You ran it down, you trapped it, you cornered it. It doesn't actually want to be there. And if a bear, a cougar, or whatever gets a chance to escape, they're going to. So are you really testing their character the way they were meant to be tested?
Right.
Now, I get that here in the West, we can't do dogfighting, and I'm not trying to suggest that. Yeah. But if I'm looking for an alternative, I think a better alternative actually is bite work. I can make a bite work that mimics the ring. I can have a decoy that wants to be there.
Right.
Ready to deal with you. I can have, if I am dealing with hogs, I don't want my dogs dealing with hogs for 30 minutes, right? As long as a match in Japan would go. I want them dealing with the hog, honestly, for as little time as possible. If I can cut it down to seconds, then so be it. And every hunter is going to say, you don't want to just leave your dog out there to deal with whatever pig, right? That's a dead dog. But if I'm dealing with bite work, I can have that decoy. Hey, work him for a few minutes. Keep him going. You know, go and confront him. Don't just test to see if he's going after that pad. Test him. Test him hard. And when it comes to it, like the shepherds, more often than not in bite work, they actually have to be taught where to bite, because they tend to go for ankles and legs and try to herd you, right? They have to be taught to go for the back of the arm. They have to be taught in, extreme protection cases to go for, more vital organs and stuff like that. You don't have to teach that to a Mastiff. A Mastiff doesn't look at a human being as a bigger thing. It looks at you just the same as it looks at another dog, you and me, right? And they're not afraid of you. They're not trying to figure out different ways to handle you, So when it comes to it, we're talking about protection work, which is fighting. That's what it is, you know? And granted, we've made a sport out of it, much the same as we've made a sport out of professional boxing, et cetera, et cetera. But I can make that work to a certain way. When those dogmen are looking at Tosas in the ring, if they see foam starting to come out the side of the mouth of the dog, they know that physical exhaustion is coming and they're ready to start calling that fight.
Right.
If they look at the dogs that are used in protection work, right, 9 times out of 10, foam is what they want to see because they want the dog to be aggressive. So slobber and drool is flying at the camera and all that stuff. And I'm not knocking that, but again, what we're looking at in the West is what that means to a human. And the human sees that as, oh my gosh, the dog is even salivating. It's hungry. It's going to try to come and get us.
Right.
What the Japanese dogman is looking at is from the dog's psychology. I can see a dog that's overworked and is getting ready to quit. You know what I mean? A dog that's putting on more of a show than what they probably should be doing at this point.
Yeah.
So when it comes to it, of course, they're going to find that style of protection work as less than favorable. So a lot of the work that I've been doing personally with the Japanese dogmen, with the Korean dogmen that I speak to, is trying to get them on board with the idea, hey, no, look at this again. Just because they do it that way doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. Right. I can make a protection sport where the dog doesn't bark. Yeah. I can do that. Absolutely can do that. I can't stop him from barking at a pig. You know, no. I'm probably not even there at first. You know, so when it comes to it, just kind of, and this is, you know, again, putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but when it comes to it, even answering the question of what I want to see for the breed long term, I want to see something that they can do that properly develops their character. And when I talk to the Japanese dogmen, when I talk to the Korean dogmen, I talk to them today and I say, you know, hey, if all your kennel burned down, you lost all your dogs in some terrible tragedy, where would you get new dogs from? They say dogs from Korea or Japan. And to put that into context, many of them have dogs in Serbia. They have dogs in the West. They had dogs in the U.S. They have dogs all over the West. They could get dogs from their lines from people who'd be happy to give them a dog. But rather than do that, they take dogs from somebody else's lines in Japan or Korea. And that's because they understand the temperament. They understand the training that the dog is undergoing, and they trust that there versus here in the West where we just want a couch potato.
Yeah.
I want to get to the day where Japanese dogman, Korean dogman, Taiwan, Vietnam, I can go to them and ask them, if you had to get a dog from the West, would you? And they'd say, a good Tosa is a good Tosa. West, East, doesn't matter. Right. I want that. And a lot of them laugh when I say that because they think it's ridiculous. And it is ridiculous. It's dreamy, right? I mean, for somebody as old as I am, I talk like somebody who doesn't have enough experience in that. But I think that they can also respect that. And they'll all say the same thing. You don't talk like people from the West. You don't talk like most people from the West. They come to me because they want a big dog and they want to say they have a dog from championship lines. Right. They come to me because they want to say that they have dogs from Korea or dogs from Japan. You talk like, I've never heard a Westerner talk like that.
Yeah, you got a mission.
And I'll tell them right there, I want to get to the day where you can say every Westerner talks like that. Right. I want to get to the day where you feel like the breed clubs respect you. Yeah. They not acknowledge you, they see you, and they respect you and understand how valuable you are. I want to get to the day where you see them the same and where there's a mutual respect and deference there. And again, a good working Tosa is a good working Tosa. That's been my experience here. People will ask, hey, where, you know, if I get a dog from Korea, if I get a dog from Japan, you know, what's the best dogs? Dogs from the West are you know, probably trash or this, that, the other thing. No. Absolutely not. First off, dogs from Korea, dogs from Japan are the same thing. All old people know each other. That's the best way I can explain that. And half of them, like, I got a dog here from Korea whose dad was Korean and whose mom or granddad was Japanese. Both of those were international grand champions. I forget the name for it in Korean, but in Japanese it's Meikin Yokozuna, and both of them were that. And they swap hands, just like here in the South, a hunting dog. A good hunting dog will swap hands. You know, it's not They're not sitting over there trapped by a lot of the stuff that traps these Western breeders who, unfortunately, so many people feel like in order to make themselves look big and good, they have to cut everybody else down.
Yep.
And it's not to say that there are people like that everywhere. That's a human nature thing.
For sure.
But you don't find that in these guys, and it's not even just them. I've interviewed several American dog men that work with that fight their dogs, and I will talk to them to the blue in the face and convert them on what gameness actually means, what they're actually testing, why they need to stop,
Yeah.
But talking to them, I have never, ever in my life ever heard a single one going back 20 years. Never heard a single one call another man's dog trash. They've never talked about anybody's dogs. Now, you get on these forums and these social media, you got these pit bull bros that'll get on there and call all dogs trash.
Oh yeah. Trainers too. I mean,
same thing.
I seen somebody screen record off of somebody's page and post it on their story and was like, trash, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, go help them out if you feel like they're not doing it right, or if they're not. Yeah, I mean, it's all over.
Man, you preaching. That's it exactly. Like, I mean, what are you actually caring about here?
Right. What are you here for?
Like with the people that we work with, the people that we have in the club, the people that we are working with. Whenever I talk to people that want to be breeders, I'll tell them my job is not to convince you one way or another, but my job is to show you the reality of it. It's not just what you see on Instagram, right? It's work. It's hard work. But on the same token, my job is to support you. If you succeed, we all succeed. And the breed gets seen in a better light, we all do better.
Right.
There's a story about a guy that they were talking about this corn farmer, and he had essentially like the world's greatest corn. And there's a guy who wanted to interview him, came from the big city, came all the way out there and was talking to him, and he had an expert with him, riding with him. And as they would get closer to the town, the expert was like, how much land does this world famous corn owner own? And the interviewer, the reporter was like, not that much actually. And the expert, the corn expert, the biologist was like, that's his corn, and we're 20 miles out, and that's his corn, and that's his corn. The closer they got, the more they saw his corn. Right. And when they got there, they did their interview, and the reporter was done with his questions, but the botanist rather, had to ask, okay, look, man, why am I seeing your corn on other people's fields? What's going on? Are people just buying your corn? He said, no, I give it to them for free.
Wow.
And reporter turned the recorder back on. It was like, okay, what are we talking about? You're giving away this world-changing corn. It's like perfect in every way. What do you mean you're giving it away? You could sell it for $1 million a year,
right.
And he said, I could. And we do sell it for a reasonable price. But for the people that are around me, here's the deal. I can have the greatest corn on the planet, but corn can't pollinate itself. So every year when the corn is ready to be pollinated, the wind blows in corn from all over the place, seeds from all over the place. So I can have the greatest corn, but if my corn is being pollinated by his field, a field 20 miles away, and it's not good corn, and I'm over here putting other people down and hogging it, my corn is never going to reach the potential that it could.
Right.
And if, on the other hand, I can help them and I can get them going, then I can guarantee that my corn only ever gets pollinated from the best. I could reach heights that I never could reach without them. And when I think about where we're at in the breed, what I'm trying to do, that's it exactly. I think you can only get so far. I mean, if you look at this breed's history, it is textbook proof for the fact that you can only get so far on your own. I don't care how great you think your dogs are. I don't care how much better you think you are than other people. I don't care about any of that. And this goes for any dogs, any breed, does not matter. You're only going to get so far. And you only got one lifetime. You got an injury that happens. You got gets sick, you only got so much. You're a human.
Yeah.
And when you retire, pass on, whatever it is, if all you've got to show is a couple of medals, I know somebody. I'm not going to name names, but they're just one example of this was a kennel, one of the biggest names, 80s, 90s, 2000s in this breed, one of the biggest names, and it's just a shame selling dogs for all kinds of prices, but cutting down other people's dogs left and right. Everybody else's dogs have to be trash, and so much so that they were cutting down the first male we ever got, which was so dumb because it was a dog we got from them. Like, I got another parable about that, but I'm not gonna bore you with that. I'm just gonna say they're cutting down a dog in somebody else's kennel, and they can't even see their own dog's face in it.
Yeah.
We got people in Japan and Korea that can look at this dog in another country and trace it back to Japan or Korea, and you can't see your own productions right here.
Right.
Right here.
Yeah, it's
you
crazy.
can't see it because of how blind you are, because of how much you just gotta be it. That's it. And those people, when you set yourself up like that, you make yourself isolated.
Yeah.
If your dogs are the only dogs that are good, then you can only breed to your dogs. Everybody else's dogs are trash. If you breed to their dogs, then you make their dogs good and you give them clout and all this other kind of stuff. You're stuck there on this pedestal and you can't breathe up there. And the dogs suffer for it first. And this person, by the time it was all said and done, despite having a reputation for having the greatest kennel program at the time and all that other kind of stuff, 40, 50 dogs, dynasty of dogs, all wiped out by one disease, one simple avoidable disease.
Wow.
They brought in a dog from another country, and because their dogs were so inbred, because of how much they isolated themselves, one disease, if it can take out one dog in their kennel, it can take them all out because they're all copies of each other.
Right.
So genetically. So they did that to themselves. And you look at the breed club that was started in the late 90s, it lasted less than a year because the people tore each other apart.
It's crazy.
The breed suffers every time. The dogs suffer every time. If you don't say you kick somebody out of the breed for the sake of the breed. Don't say you tore somebody down for the sake of the breed. Say you built somebody up. Say you invested in the future. And this person was the reason why I came across them in the first place, like as far as actually meeting them, was because they came up bragging about, they got this many titles and worked in this many different places, got dogs from this many countries and this, that, or the other thing. And it's like, yeah, but what's left today?
Right.
What dogs do you have around today? You're looking at me like you want me to bow down and kiss the ring, but I'm going to hurt your feelings right quick. Look, there's a 17-year-old girl that spent an afternoon showing me how to stack my dog. I got more respect for her in spades than I'll ever have for you. The way she treats people shows her character.
Yeah.
Just as it does with you. And you don't hold your breath waiting for me to acknowledge you. Don't hold your breath waiting for me to come begging. It's not going to happen. Right. And when it comes to the dogs we pick and bring in, a man I count as a good friend, but most people would probably say we're at acquaintance level, but I count everybody as good friend.
Yeah.
He told me he trained under Stover. I don't know if you're familiar with bulldogs, but he trained under Stover. And Stover, old school dog man, definitely fought dogs back in the day. And again, not talking about the practice, but that doesn't mean that they don't have good knowledge.
Right.
One thing Stover said that I was struggling to try to communicate, but he put it in one sentence. He said, "You don't bet on the dog, you bet on the man." And what he's saying is essentially character counts, education, knowledge count, training count, work counts. And you can have a dog that has all kinds of pedigree, all kinds of this, that. You put him with the wrong guy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't have to be dog fighting. It could be herding. It could be agility. It could be dock diving. Doesn't matter. You bet on the person. And when it comes to how we make decisions as to what we bring into our kennel and stuff like that, I want to meet the people first. I can look at pedigrees. I want to look at pedigrees because I want to make sure the dogs aren't too genetically related, but I want to meet the people. And the better I can understand the people, the better I can get to understand them, the more I'm confident about their dogs.
Right.
And again, I've never not been satisfied by a dog I produced or obtained. And what are we at now? 20, 25 years in the breed? 20,
Wow.
something like that. 25, I think, years in the breed. I think right around 2000, maybe a little bit after that. But in that time, I have never once had a dog that had any sort of heart conditions, eye issues, skin problems, joint problems, you name it, rare diseases, all that stuff. Never once had that. And it's not because I'm some sort of, divining rod out here, using the crystal ball to look and see, will this dog have a good future? No, but just look at good, decent, honest people, and don't waste time on salespeople. Um, I've worked with programs that it was their first or second breeding in this breed. They were knowledgeable in dogs. This is their first or second program in this breed, but I believe in them. I believe in their vision, and I've never been disappointed with that. I've worked with people who've been in this breed for as long as I've been alive, much the same.
Wow.
And they haven't necessarily been on everybody's front page, but they've been doing the thing and they've been working hard and they've been treating people right.
Yeah.
I can see that. I think you're going to treat your dogs right. I think you're not going to be the kind of person that takes corners. I think you're not going to be the person that compromises to make a sale. I'm going to work with you. We can build on that,
For sure.
And if our productions are anything to say for that, we don't have dog shows here in the U.S., but certainly the dogs that we've produced have been wonderful pets for a lot of people. We've had dogs that went to depredation. So fending off cougars, I doubt that they see a whole lot of bears in some of those places, but so I'm told. Stuff like that. Coyotes, definitely a lot. Definitely put down a lot of coyotes. And the fact that they can even catch them in the first place, right?
Yeah.
We've known people that have worked with dogs closely related to ours that have used them in hunting work. With me personally, I haven't yet. I don't want to present myself as being experienced in doing that with this breed, even though I haven't. But it is something that I'm definitely looking into. I've gotten a few contacts for a few leases, a few people that have been offering to let me come out there and start working and training dogs there.
Yeah.
I think being a dog trainer helps with that.
Wow.
But still, the work that I have done, I've trained several of my dogs for personal protection. I've trained several of my dogs for different types of work, just because I feel like it's good to keep their mind working,
Right.
and don't let it go to waste. And again, never once been disappointed. And I think that speaks to that a lot. The culture in whatever club you're working with, whatever breed you're working with, the way people come together, that's going to tell you the prognosis for a breed.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, man. Well, that's it. Definitely gonna have to do a part 2 at some point. I think I got a couple more questions. I think I could, not even a couple. I think I got a lot of different topics we could bring into play.
Yeah,
Yeah, you.
absolutely.
I mean, you hit these questions hard tonight.
Yeah.
I think my audience definitely enjoyed your times, well as me, of course. And I will say, send me that slideshow. I love to post the pictures that you send me, and maybe we
Yeah.
can do some content once you get on that land and start doing some hunting. I love to repost or
Yeah.
even just highlight what the Tosa can do. That's what my channel's about, highlighting what these dogs are about and what they can do.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
And I'll send you. I'm gonna write it down if you'll bear with me a moment.
Okay.
I'm gonna make sure that I send you those breed history pics, especially of some of those dogs that were used, so that you can kind of see and feature exactly what I mean when we're talking about, pit bulls were used in the creation of the breed. Yes and no. There were dogs that would be called pit bulls at that time, but are they what we see today? Absolutely not.
Right.
And same thing with the Mastiff and
Yeah, that's a
Spanish.
topic in itself, man, with the with the pit
Yeah,
bulls. Like, I think
absolutely.
even some people have used the Tosa in their kennels for the pit bulls, but that's a whole nother thing. But
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Especially when it comes to like the hybrid Mastiffs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, like I think that there's a good way to do things and a bad way to do anything.
Right.
I think that there are people that are creating hybrid dogs, but they're managing them responsibly. They're making
Yeah,
sure they're going to good homes. They're all that other kind of stuff. Um, and breeds got to come from somewhere, right?
for sure.
So it's not really my place to speak on that, but I don't care if you're working with purebreds or mixed breeds. If you're cutting corners, if you're just producing stuff to make a buck and stuff like that, it doesn't matter what you do. At that point, you're not doing it right, and you're not doing right.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
so I've definitely seen some people use Tosas in their hybrid Mastiffs. Um, I don't want to say this wrong, but I want to say that the guy at Sentinel Canine may have tried it. And I know that there was a guy back in 2023. I don't know if he's still around, but there's a guy in 2023 who was combining the Italian Mastiffs. So the Cane Corso, the Neo, and there was another one that he named, and I forget what it was. And then taking that to Tosa. He had a Tosa
Yeah,
female. And again, I don't know where that program went. I haven't spoken to him probably since 2023. But again, I see them used out there. I've seen people use them to make toe pits with pit bulls and Tosas.
yeah,
It's probably a litter every 10 years somewhere in the US.
right.
Uh, but yeah, for the most part, it's rare enough that you don't see too much
Yeah,
going on, and you certainly don't see them mass produced, which is something that we are grateful for, but we want to take advantage of, in the sense of we can't just rely on that secrecy
yeah,
and lack of knowledge about the breed. They're going to get out there. People are going to know them. It's not like, back in the 1800s where people didn't know anything about Japan.
right.
Um, there's internet, there's social media, all that stuff. If you don't say it, someone will.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
a question of how it's presented. So we'll say we enjoy the fact that right now we're kind of starting from scratch with a lot of stuff with this breed, but that also implies the importance of continuing to move forward to represent them publicly and get them in front of people as much as possible to kind of make sure we present them in the best light as possible. It's not to say stuff won't go sideways and stuff doesn't happen, but for instance, it was within the last year. I remember reading a story where a lady was killed by a couple of Great Danes. She was watching the dogs for her neighbor. Went to feed them. Fight broke out between the dogs. She got involved trying to break it up and ended up getting killed. Very tragic. Very tragic. But you never saw that in HOA discussions. You never saw that in the news or anything like that. And the reason why is because the Great Dane Club of America immediately released a statement. The AKC immediately released a statement.
Right.
Hey, this is unfortunate circumstances, and true, we hate any loss of life.
Yeah,
But on the same token, this is not indicative of this breed. Everybody knows Great Danes enough to know, hey, that's not all there is out there.
right.
If there's one thing I think that's regrettable about the pit bull, is this double punch of the fact that people kind of think that isolation and keeping the breed a secret is a good thing, and also the idea that when people do say, "Hey, this is a pit bull," that's a pit bull. Nobody's really there to show them an actual pit bull, not just a picture, but educate the public instead of having to always be the one to say, this is not, that's not, this is, that is. No. Let them meet the dogs,
Right.
make them the experts so that when bad information comes to them, they can say, that doesn't sound right, And that's what we're trying to do with the Tosa, so that if somebody comes up and says, oh, the Tosa is a fighting breed, they're extremely dog aggressive, and they just, you can't have them around other dogs. I can say, well, they're not a breed to be taken lightly or managed irresponsibly. Absolutely not. But it is not a breed that you should be able to pick out of a lineup based on its behavior around other dogs.
Right.
It should be able to play with other dogs as long as those dogs are respectful. It should be able to deal with most situations that you take it to. Most people wouldn't know it's a fighting dog. But, and this is, again, like, you could take international grand champion, the dog that just won the strongest title in Korea, strongest dog in Korea. You could take it to your dog park, your local dog park, and as long as nobody's trying to fight, that dog's not going to fight anybody. And even if they are trying to fight, but they aren't demonstrating that they have a balanced state of mind, he's not going to fight him. He's going to let him bounce off of him. And that's what he's supposed to do.
Right.
So making it to where when people hear erroneous information and they themselves can say, that's not right. That doesn't hold true to what a samurai is supposed to be. That doesn't add up to a sumo. That's probably not right for this breed. I think that's the thing we're trying to build in right now. So I really, really appreciate getting to sit and chat with you. I will happily sit for as many interviews as you like. I appreciate it. It's an honor. It's an honor and a privilege anytime. So I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think that's it for Catch Dog Concepts. I think I got another great show coming up. I think I'm gonna save it for another week though. We appreciate Cory coming on. Y'all share this, like, subscribe, and let's continue to better our minds and dogs.
Alrighty. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. See ya.